What's up, my healthy friends? This is Josh Rubin, and I am a human being that practices nutrition. And I teach people how to use food to restore thyroid health. Now, of course, you may or may not know, but my wife also is part of the business, and she's usually on this. But she has been very sick for about a week and counting. So, unfortunately, she is getting better, but she's not going to be able to join us today again. But she will be back here on Thursday. So don't forget, we do this every Monday and Thursday, 12 p.m. Pacific Coast time. If you want to see our past coffee talks, you can go to the video tab. It's on the left-hand side of our page, the video tab of our Facebook page. And you can see the playlist folder for Coffee Talk, and you can see past episodes. As well, we're storing them on our YouTube page, which is East West Healing. So you can definitely check those out because we have had some great ones. Today we switch it around a little bit. I know we're supposed to talk about, stress reduction, things like that. But I'd rather have my wife here for that one. It's something she really wants to kind of be a part of. So we're switching that to Thursday and moving hyperventilation and anxiety to today. So just a little switcheroo if you didn't know. If you didn't know about it, doesn't matter. You're still going to get them in the same week, just in a little bit of a different order. Before we get started, don't forget, as always, you can go to our website at eastwesthealing.com and sign up for a free consult, as well as subscribe to our Restoration Thyroid audio series, which is a 7-part audio series. It's free, it's complimentary, and we talk about how to heal your adrenals and thyroid with food, aka metabolism. So I'm actually going to put that link right here in the comment section so you can get a hold of it. It's pretty simple. At the same time, you can also go to our website and sign up for a free 15-minute consult, complimentary. We can talk about your questions and maybe give you a few tips to help you move forward if you've been struggling, with thyroid-like issues, or they don't have to be like thyroid-like issues because everything is regulated by those hormones in the cells. So whether you think it or not, just fill out the form. We'll talk to you, and then from there, of course, if you're interested, you can, move forward with some one-to-one counseling. So let me post that as well, the free 15-minute consult, just so you have easy access to it. Before we go into hyperventilation and anxiety today, what I want to remind you of, which really helps us out, is two things, or actually is many things. First, if you're watching this, whether it's on the playback or live, please like it. It helps us tremendously, and we really appreciate it. Secondly, if you comment, tell us where you're from, where you're listening from. We'd love to know where people are listening from. We get people from South Africa, Rwanda. We get people from Asia, Australia, Canada, UK, all over the place. It's awesome to see where people are from. So definitely comment and tell us where you're listening from. Third, what helps us even more is, what do you guys want to hear about? What do you guys want to learn about? So if you have a topic, right, and it's just something you've been wanting to hear about, or you want to know our philosophy about, go ahead and post that in the comments, whether you're listening now or in the playback, so we can easily not only get some ideas, but also get information to you guys that you want to hear about. And that's the most important thing. And that's really why we're doing this. We're not doing this so we can hear ourselves talk. We're doing this to get information to you guys, to give you what you need, like, at your fingertips, so you can really break through those plateaus and heal. And that's the most important thing, because, of course, our view on certain things, or a lot of things, is very different. It's different than mainstream. And I think it's powerful because a lot of people are doing mainstream stuff, and they hit that roadblock and they don't know what to do. So definitely do those three things. Like the video, tell us where you're from, and then anything you'd love to hear about. So today, as always, if you have questions, post them in the comments. I'll get to them. For some reason, I always have a slight issue seeing them. I don't know why, but I'm definitely going to try to work around that. So if you have questions as we go through this, put them in the comment section, and I'd love to get to them. Maybe I'll stop what I'm talking about, or I'll get to them in the end, okay? So if you're joining us now, welcome. Today we're going to be talking about hyperventilation anxiety, and as I mentioned, my wife will not be here today because she's sick, but she will be here Thursday at 12 p.m. Pacific Coast time to talk about stress and what we can do to really combat that through the day. What are some applicable things that we can do? So why do I want to talk about hyperventilation and anxiety? Well, I think it's a really big topic, to be honest with you, from the point of, most people struggle with anxiety. I mean, that's very simple. Whether you have PTSD from being in a war, or whether you have, anxiety around food, that's really big. Whether you have anxiety around the way you look, being in public situations. And I think it's getting more and more because of technology, right? So this is a huge topic. And I think a lot of people don't know how to take control of that anxiety. And they just live with it. Secondly, if we are in a hypometabolic state, or if we're hypothyroid, let's say, we are hypoventilating, well, we believe it or not. And most people are hypoventilating, and that's the problem. And they don't even know it, right? So the problem with hyperventilating is this. Most people, whether it's coming from anxiety, whether it's coming from hypothyroidism, wherever it's coming from, doesn't matter, PTSD. People think that anxiety causes us to hyperventilate. What happens when we hyperventilate? What's recommended most of the time? Well, back in the day was put a brown bag over your mouth and breathe into a brown bag. Nowadays, it's take a medication, right? So it's a little bit different. But why are we breathing into that brown bag? Think about it. We're doing that because when we hyperventilate, we mouth breathe. And when we mouth breathe, we blow off too much CO2. And CO2 is life. It allows us to access oxygen for the tissues, our cells, our brain, everything, right? In the nervous system. So when we blow off too much CO2 because we're breathing too fast, rapidly through the mouth, we put a brown bag over our mouth. What happens? We capture that CO2. We bring CO2 back in the body. We stimulate the parasympathetic nervous system. Why? Because now we are getting more oxygen to our cells, to our brain, to our tissues, and to the body. So that's the whole thing with the brown bag. Now, let's go back to what I was saying. A lot of people think that anxiety causes us to hyperventilate. Now, of course it does. It exacerbates it. But hyperventilation, or how we breathe, hyperventilating causes anxiety. Why? Because that loss of CO2 stimulates the stress reaction. So when we mouth breathe, we push our body into a different energy state, and we start to hyperventilate because we're blowing off too much CO2. The body essentially is trying to breathe more and more to get more oxygen in, more CO2, but it can't compensate for all the CO2 that's getting blown off, right? So we know the brain needs oxygen, and we know the brain needs glucose. We know it needs it for a particular reason to really keep our body in a homeostatic state. That's why if we don't get enough oxygen and our blood sugar is not regulated, it can stimulate an anxiety attack through hyperventilation, right? So it's really important to realize that. And I want to talk about today, what are some of the things that can actually benefit us when we are hyperventilating and we don't know it, or if we have anxiety attacks or anxiety-like symptoms. And sometimes we can't even identify with it. Sometimes it happens and you're just like, what is going on? I've never experienced this before. So a lot of the things I'm going to be talking about are very applicable to, having it or not even knowing that you're having it. So when we hyperventilate, we blow off all this CO2, that lack of air or oxygen that we're feeling, that dizziness, that confusion, that just, oh my God, what is going on? I feel so short of breath. It's because we're not accessing oxygen in the system, which makes us feel like we're suffocating. And in a sense, at the cell level, we are. Because how we breathe is very important. How we eat our food is very important. Because we're accomplishing two different things. Just to let you know, right now in in January, it is, I'm just thinking it's winter, but it's January, it is winter, but it's like 80, 85 degrees right here. And it is hot. I am sweating. And it's been like the past couple nights, last week, it's been in the 40s. So it's a huge temperature shift, and it's just amazing. Little caveat that it's that hot right now. So how we breathe and how we eat is so important from a respiration perspective. Think about it. So what we're trying to do on a deep level with food, metabolic foods and the right food frequency, grams, ratios, calories to meet people's needs is this. We're trying to make sure that the liver is storing enough glycogen to convert thyroid hormone. So we have two things, sugar and thyroid hormone, which is T3. And this is really important. Now, of course, there's more to it. I'm simplifying it. We want to make sure we have these things so we can use them within the cell, which are in all your tissues, all your organs, all your systems to regulate cellular energy production. Because your cells require this. And this is important. But also, they require oxygen from how we breathe, right? So these two systems have to be married, because if we don't get oxygen and we are getting thyroid hormone and sugar, we cannot produce enough energy, which is CO2, ATP, and water. And the CO2 is important because it allows us, through the Bohr effect, to detach hemoglobin from oxygen, so oxygen can actually get back into the cell and keep the cycle going, so it can produce more energy, access more oxygen, and keep energy production going at the cell level. That's complex, but that's why we need it. So if we don't breathe correctly, right, what is happening? We can't produce energy at the cell level. We can't get our body out of this hypometabolic state. We can't reduce inflammation. And this is a missing link on why a lot of people can't heal or heal themselves from anxiety, right? And that's why I'm going to talk about food, but also breathing. So how we breathe is important, because if we're not breathing correctly, we get rid of too much CO2. We're not taking enough oxygen in, and we can't access enough oxygen, and we can't keep that feedback cycle in the cell going, and that's a problem, right? And that's what stimulates the hyperventilation response, right? So look around or think about it. Now, if you do it on yourself, the second you start thinking about it and you're aware of it, it's going to change. So that's hard. Watch people when you're walking down the road. Watch people when you're at work sitting at a desk. Watch people when they're on a phone in stressful situations at the gym. What are most people doing? They're breathing through their mouth. And this is sympathetic. This is the stress state. And we don't want to be in this state all the time. In a physiological state, we should be breathing through our nose. And I know this sounds crazy, and a lot of people say, no way, this is too hard. I can't. But if we look at structure governs function, your nose is meant for breathing. It's not meant for eating. Your mouth is meant for eating. Your nose has cilia, right? It warms, humidifies. It filters the air. Your mouth does not do that. That's why a lot of people, when they breathe through their mouth, get a dry throat, sore throat, and they get exercise-induced asthma, right? They get a lot of dehydration. So the principles of this are kind of like asthma in itself. So nose breathing is really important to really down-regulate this response, which I'll talk about. So how do we really fix this? Now, because that's the science of it. It's that simple. What's going on at the cell? If we're not storing glycogen, we're not producing thyroid hormone. If we're mouth breathing, we're not accessing oxygen. And this lack of oxygen, or the insufficient amount of CO2 in our blood, is what causes us to hyperventilate and what causes us to have an anxiety attack, right? So what do we do? At the same time, if you're on this and you have anxiety attacks, or you used to, and you want to share what's worked for you, or even what hasn't worked for you, we'd love to know. So please put them in the comment section below. So the first thing that you really should do is regulate your blood sugar. And this is very, very, very important. This is what we do in our business. You can say hi to Jeannie. She's in the background. Wave, Jeannie. Say hi to everyone.
Hi, everybody. I miss you guys.
She's off to the doctor. So when we don't regulate our blood sugar, this creates a roller coaster, which is dysglycemia. This creates a hypoglycemia, a hyperglycemia. And of course, this is dangerous, because when we don't create that steady energy input, our body kind of stimulates the stress response, survival mode. It wants to help out as much as it can to keep us alive. But this can be very dangerous. A lot of the hormones that we're releasing actually cause us to go into this hyperventilation anxiety state, like adrenaline and cortisol. We get that upregulation of heart rate. We get the sweating. We get the maybe inability to sleep. We get that tense feeling, tension in our muscles. We get the inability to kind of relax and settle into our body, right? So when we regulate our blood sugar, what do? We teach the liver to store glycogen. We've talked about this a million times. We increase the conversion of thyroid hormone in the production of energy at the cell level. And that's huge, because what we're really doing is we're down-regulating the stress response. We're putting our body into a more calm, relaxed state. We're regulating heart rate. We're preventing the burden on the adrenals, which is kind of the stress organs, we can call them. So we down-regulate the amount of stress hormones that are being produced, right? Now, I'm not saying it's something you can do right away, like you're having an anxiety attack, you just eat food and it's going to be regulated. Now, it works for some, it doesn't work for others. This is more of a long-term preventative thing. And we use body temperature pulse to really look at this. We're looking at how much CO2 is in the blood, how much oxygen is getting in the cells, and how much energy or heat we are producing. And when we do that, right, like I said, the lack of CO2 in the blood, we can't get enough oxygen, that causes us to hyperventilate, that gives us anxiety. When we eat the right foods and we regulate our blood sugar throughout the day by producing heat, by eating small meals throughout the day, or 3 big meals, 3 small meals, whatever it is, through food frequency, we downregulate the stress on the adrenals. We downregulate all those stress hormones that cause us to lose our breath, sweat, that rapid heart rate. We regulate our blood sugar and we increase energy production. So we increase the amount of CO2 in the blood. Now we can access oxygen, and now our cells are breathing better, right? Which puts us in a more parasympathetic, relaxed state, right? So for me, that's one of the most important things, because I think a lot of people, when they have anxiety, they try to just do one thing, right? They try to do breathing or meditation or talk to someone. And I'm not saying those things aren't important, but you're a human being. The most important thing we need to do as a human being is this: drink fluids, right, to survive, and eat food. Without them, we don't thrive. And we can't live, right? We can live without talking to someone, going to see a specialist. We can live without a supplement, right? Same thing with breathing. That's why these things are so fundamental for us to not only survive, but thrive. So it's a foundation for everyone. So if you have anxiety, look at your nutrition. Look at the foods you're eating, the frequency that you're eating them. And make sure that you're eating in a way that really works for your system to regulate your blood sugar, to increase the amount of CO2 in the blood so you can access more oxygen. So you're creating physiological balance. So the second thing I always recommend is looking at caffeine. Now, caffeine is a stimulant, we know this, and nowadays, because of hipsters promoting the excessive intake of caffeine, because of all these different energy drinks and recovery drinks that have caffeine in them, everyone thinks caffeine is healthy, and it's not. You know, people say, well, I can drink coffee before I go to bed and I can sleep all night. That's not a good thing, actually. That means your body is a very hypo-depleted state. And of course, there's a lot of medications, right? And even over-the-counter medications that have stimulants in them. And we're not talking about even just drugs, we're just talking about stimulants. So the problem is this. Number one, it's very simple. When we take these in excess, of course, they can make us feel anxious. Some of us can feel it, some of us can't, right? If we're sitting still, some of us do feel anxious. If we're moving around and we're expending energy, a lot of the time it's hard to feel that anxiety. It overloads our system. It overloads and burdens the adrenal system, our stress system. It overloads our nervous system and our pancreas, right? And the problem is this: most people are taking them in an excessive amount, and their blood sugar is not regulated. So this is like a double whammy. So when we take them in and we're constantly taking them in, they stimulate the stress response. They stimulate that hypoglycemic state. they make our adrenals produce excess cortisol and adrenaline, which puts us back into that tensed, rapid heart rate, sweaty, anxious, tense state, which can easily stimulate anxiety, or I should say hyperventilation, because what's going on physiologically. So we need to look at that, because it's all about really supporting your blood sugar when it comes to the things we're ingesting, whether it be food or stimulants. Because if you take in too many, in a sense, you're pushing your body into this kind of blood sugar roller coaster, up and down all day. You have caffeine, you eat, and at the same time, it causes people to eat less. And that's what we don't need. We don't need to be eating less to live in this starvation mode, right? So the second thing would be looking at how much you're taking in for caffeine, where you're getting it, looking at your medications. Are they stimulating? Are they suppressing your appetite? And forcing your body to be in this sympathetic stress survival state all the time. That's where you don't want to be. And a lot of the times that is what can stimulate hyperventilation at the physiological level, which causes anxiety at the superficial level. Okay? Third thing is eat foods that are high in minerals to reduce inflammation. Now, this is kind of like just these are just like little things that you can do to actually aid in the process of energy production, right? So things like selenium, foods that include selenium, or even sometimes supplementation. But I've honestly never had to use supplementation. Because your liver has a specific enzyme, 5'-deoninase, that uses selenium to convert thyroid hormone. So selenium is very, very, very important, besides sugar, for thyroid hormone conversion in the liver, right? At the same time, foods that are high in magnesium, like tropical fruits, shellfish, right? These are very important because they not only support energy production at the cell level, but they also support, of course, balancing that calcium-magnesium ratio to regulate the tension or relaxation in our muscles. And a lot of the times that can stimulate the stress response in some people. So we can ingest certain shellfish, we can ingest tropical fruits, we can take Epsom salt baths. These are the things that can help us over time to not only regulate energy production and CO2 in the blood, but regulate how we're breathing and the amount of oxygen that's getting to our muscles, our tissues, our cells, etc., to help support and reduce the chances of us going into this kind of like anxiety-like state, okay? And these are some of the metabolic foods we recommend. We recommend tropical fruits. We recommend shellfish. We recommend whitefish. We recommend, when needed, Epsom salt baths for these specific reasons. Not because they're cool, but because they do specific things to blood sugar and energy production. And that's what life and thriving is all about on the physiological level. The fourth thing you can do is utilize foods that contain non-inflammatory proteins. And this is a big one. It doesn't seem that big, but it's a big one. So what we're talking about is this, some of the ones I just mentioned. Broth, gelatin, or collagen, whatever you want to call it. Dairy, eggs, liver, or organ meats. Shellfish, whitefish. These are very, very, very important prothyroid energy-producing foods that help us to not hyperventilate unconsciously at the involuntary state, because they don't contain inflammatory amino acids like tryptophan and cysteine, right? They also have a lot of prothyroid qualities because of minerals that are in them, etc. So they're very beneficial. Now, I'm not saying you have to live on these foods, but I'm saying that we need to utilize them. It's very rare that I get a log from someone and I see shellfish or whitefish or liver or broth. I see it sometimes, but not a lot. Usually I see gelatin because it's a big rage right now. But the other foods are way better, right? Because we're going to get the minerals and we're getting something that's non-inflammatory. Now, I'm not saying muscle meats like chicken, beef, lamb, venison, etc. are dangerous. But what I'm saying is this. In excess, they can be because of what they contain. They contain tryptophan and cysteine. Now, tryptophan converts to serotonin, and serotonin is very inhibitory to that energy production at the cell level. So, when we want to reduce anxiety or sleep better, it's really important to get more of our proteins from these pro-metabolic proteins and less from the inflammatory proteins. Now, I'm not saying you can't have them. So what I recommend is this for people is, if you're okay with cutting out the inflammatory ones, cut them out. If you're not, incorporate some of these non-inflammatory proteins into your diet. They're more digestible, and they're going to benefit you so much more at the not only digestive level, but the metabolic level. At the same time, if you don't want to give up the muscle meats, what you can is just say, maybe when I have steak, maybe when I have chicken, maybe when I have lamb, I'm going to eat a little less. And I'm always going to have to try to have collagen or broth with it. What does this do? What this does is it prevents the inflammatory amino acids that are digested going into the blood and stimulating the stress reaction. So now we're creating balance, and that's what our philosophy is all about. We don't want to say don't have this, don't have that, right? So if you're going to have your steak, instead of maybe 8 ounces, you have 6. Maybe you usually have 6, maybe you have 4 instead. And now you're adding a little bit of cup of broth or some collagen somewhere to balance out the amino acids that are going into the blood. Now we de-stress the system, right? And this is this is important when we're talking about breathing and hyperventilation, because remember, if we're hyperventilating or etc. on the physiological level, then we're going to get anxiety. It's just how it works. It's physiology, and we can't really argue that. The last thing, the really most important thing that I probably stress the most with people, which is conscious awareness. And that's taking control of our breathing. Because just because you have anxiety, just because you hyperventilate, doesn't mean you have to. What it means is this: if we hyperventilate and cause anxiety, it's a chance for us to take control. It's a chance for us to take conscious control of something that is supposedly involuntary. So it's really simple. I'll give you some information, but it's really simple. If we mouth breathe, which stimulates the stress reaction and gets rid of too much CO2, which causes us to hyperventilate and causes us to get anxiety, what would be the easiest thing that we can do to reduce anxiety? Breathe through your nose. Throughout the entire day. Just breathe through your nose when you can. What that's going to do is, it's going to prevent the loss of CO2. That loss will help increase the amount of CO2 in your blood, and over time, it's going to decrease hyperventilation, and it's going to decrease your anxiety, your tension, your dizziness, lack of oxygen, etc. Because now CO2 is circulating in the blood, we can access oxygen more by detaching it from hemoglobin. It gets in our cells, we produce energy, etc., etc. So breathing correctly is the easiest thing that we can do to take conscious control of our anxiety. Now, I'm not saying if you just do this, everything's going to go away. You have to have the food there to really create that foundation, right, to let the breathing work. Like I said, the physiological level and the breathing have to be married for them to work, because the oxygen we breathe is used at the cell level. So we have to use them together in order to heal, and that's why the foods we eat and the frequency that we eat them is so important, as well as how we breathe. So, what would be some things that you could do with breathing? Of course, is looking at your posture. Now, a lot of people are hunched over, of course. That's an issue. A lot of people have forward head posture. So really be aware of your posture. Don't get crazy with it. But the most important thing that is related to posture is using your diaphragm. Most people are using their accessory respiratory muscles, which creates the neck pain, which creates the pain between your shoulder blades, right? Which creates the tension in your muscles and in your neck. You need a massage all the time. When we use our diaphragm and other primary muscles of respiration, right, we're more able to breathe correctly, slower, and deeper, and really regulate the autonomic nervous system. Because what we're doing there is we're taking control of the vagus nerve and the autonomic nervous system, the parasympathetic nervous system. So how do we do that? It's really simple, and the easiest way to explain it is just belly breathing. So when you inhale, your belly should go out. When you exhale, the belly should come in. It's not that simple, but that's an easy way to really see if you're tense, if you're not using your diaphragm, etc. And there are ways to strengthen the diaphragm, and there are breathing exercises that we teach. If you want to check out our metabolic breathing page on Facebook and Instagram, we talk a lot about this, and we have a complimentary breathing program where we go into, just how to prevent the loss of CO2 and how to access the diaphragm, etc. But that is really important, and that is the most important thing I would say when it comes to breathing, because if you're breathing from your nose and you're not accessing your diaphragm, it's really not that beneficial. So the first thing would be to really make sure you're breathing with good posture so you can access your diaphragm, right? The second thing, like I said, is nose breathe throughout the day. Just be aware of how you're breathing. Number one, it's going to slow our breathing down. Number two, it's going to increase circulating nitric oxide. Number three, it's going to prevent the loss of CO2, which is going to prevent anxiety, as I explained earlier on in this talk. Third, create awareness. Slow down your breathing rate throughout the day, or be aware of when it's fast, right? Be aware of when you're breathing through your mouth and not through your nose. A lot of people that I work with, that I assess, they're breathing really, really fast. They're breathing 20 to 30 times plus per minute. And their CO2 threshold is about 10 seconds. Mine is about 60 seconds, and you should be easily at 30 plus seconds, right? So people are living in a stress state. So we can begin to reverse that by taking control of our breath, by taking awareness and creating awareness around when is it speeding up, when is it slowing down, what things are causing it to speed up, what things are causing it to slow down, and as well, of course, breathing through the nose, as I mentioned. So what are some simple breathing things that you could do? The first is just breathing through your nose throughout the day, and in the morning and at night, even midday, sitting there for 5 minutes and taking slow breaths through the nose in and slow breaths through the nose out. Why is this important? The sympathetic nervous system is correlated with inhalation. The heart rate speeds up. The parasympathetic nervous system is correlated with exhalation. So when we inhale, it's more sympathetic. When we exhale, it's more parasympathetic. The heart rate slows down. So if we inhale nice and slowly, what are we doing? Besides not blowing off CO2, etc. We're controlling the sympathetic nervous system and the heart rate. We're not letting it get out of control. We're not letting it get too excited. And then when we exhale nice and slow, maybe twice as long if possible, what are we doing? We're strengthening the parasympathetic nervous system. We're strengthening the vagal brake. The stronger the parasympathetic nervous system, the more it can control the sympathetic, the more control we have over our hyperventilation, our anxiety, our body, with our breathing. So it's very important to do that in order to get control of your breathing. Now, I know when you're hyperventilating, it's challenging. I know it's challenging. Maybe you're breathing through your nose and it's just out of control. Try to slow that down. When you feel like you have a grip on it, try to breathe through the nose and the mouth. Slow it down and then get to the nose. And then slow that down, right? So you might work backwards to get to the nose when you have an anxiety attack to reduce the hyperventilation and not blow off the CO2. And it's a process. But the biggest thing is looking at the foods you're taking in, looking at the frequency that you're eating them to regulate your blood sugar, and conscious awareness of how we're breathing to regulate not only anxiety, but our hyperventilation. Because like I said at the beginning, if we can use food and breathing to affect our physiology, CO2, and energy production, we affect oxygen within the system, we reduce hyperventilation, and we reduce our anxiety. So it's very, very key that we focus on these things. So I've said a lot, and I want to open up for some questions. If you have questions now, go ahead and post them below. If you want to share, maybe, if you, like I said, if you have any tips, if you've gone through anxiety and you have some tips on what worked for you, please post them below. Whether you're listening to now or in the playback. but I'd love to open it up maybe for the next 4 minutes for some questions regarding this topic, or even some past topics, to be honest with you. So I'll give you a little bit of time if you want to type some up. People seem a little bit quiet today, which is okay. We do these twice a week, which is quite a lot, to be honest with you. We're here every Monday and Thursday at 12 p.m. Pacific Coast time if you're watching. And today is about hyperventilation and anxiety. How we breathe causes anxiety, not anxiety causes hyperventilation. Thursday's topic is on basically applicable things that we can do to reduce stress. I think that's the biggest thing, because we work with so many people and they struggle, and people looking for a way out, and they don't have anything. Everyone says do this and do that, but how do we get there? So we're going to talk about that on Thursday. So anyone that's on here, do we have any questions for today regarding hyperventilation and anxiety, or breathing, or food, anything in relation to it? While you're thinking of your questions, don't forget, you can look in the comment section. Don't forget to sign up for your, sorry, I posted the free consult twice. Your Restoration Thyroid audio series, I'll repost that right now. So you can download your 7-part audio series on how to heal your adrenals and thyroid with food. So let me post that up here, because I posted the consultation twice. Doesn't look like we have any questions for today, which is fine. If you have any questions on the playback, go ahead and post them below. My wife and I will probably get them within the next 24 to 48 hours. If you have any topics for upcoming shows, please post them below. And once again, we love you to like the video and post where you're listening from. I love to know where people are from. It's pretty amazing how we can communicate and get in touch with so many people with social media. It's awesome. We do have a couple questions. Any tips for waking up in the middle of the night with anxiety, not able to get back to sleep? Yeah, that's usually food related, because when we go into starvation mode, we stimulate the stress response. That stress response causes the anxiety, right? So obviously I don't want you to get up and eat a meal in the middle of the night. That's not a good thing to train your body to do. So this is what I recommend. The foundation for that, number one, is everything we just talked about today. Looking at how you're living, what's causing you stress throughout the day, what's causing you to hyperventilate, what's causing you anxiety, or causing your heart rate to speed up. You got to be aware of that. Secondly, look at the foods and the frequency that you're eating throughout the day. If you're eating 2 meals, 3 meals, and you're hyperventilating, it makes sense. So you always have to meet your metabolic needs. All right? Some people need 5, some people need 6, some people need 4. Everyone's different, because we all lead different lives. So that frequency throughout the day and that blood sugar regulation is going to set the stage for how you sleep in that stress reaction. So that's number one. Number two, keep a small, maybe 4 ounces or so, no more than that. Doesn't even have to be that big, of orange juice, salt, put some salt in it to the point you can still drink it, and a scoop of gelatin, right? And when you wake up and you have an anxiety attack, take some sips of that. Don't chug it, just take a couple sips. The reason is this: sugar will help downregulate the cortisol, the salt helps to downregulate adrenaline. So that's a quick measure that you can keep out of your bed. The third is, try to take control of your breath. Because we know that hyperventilating causes anxiety. So if we take control of our breath, what do? Downregulate anxiety. So if you find yourself breathing through your mouth, like I said, try to control it, and then goes nose to mouth, and then go nose to nose. And just work backwards to slow it down. If you work with your food throughout the day, and you're breathing, over time, you won't even need those things at night. So hopefully that helps and answers your question. Are we supposed to nose breathe when we exhale during exercise? Well, here's the thing. I work with people that are healing, that want to heal, that are at their low, that are hypothyroid, etc. So this is what I tell everyone. When they're exercising, you have to breathe through your nose. You have to choose a form of exercise that allows you to breathe through your nose. You have to move at a pace that allows you to breathe through your nose. Because when you don't, you're moving into a sympathetic state. That's the bottom line. Now, I'm not saying I'm God, but when I go do working out, do I breathe through my nose the whole time? No, I don't. But I'm aware of how I'm breathing, and I try to recover if I have rests between workouts, or if I do intervals on the bike, or whatever it is, or even sometimes when I'm doing something, I really try to control my breath with my nose, and then when I'm done with my workout, I take 5 minutes to recover for the loss of all the CO2 that I blew off. So it's a two-pronged approach for people that are like really at their low and they're sick, or for people that are just working out and they've really maybe gotten healthier and they want to still work out. What do we do? But honestly, for most people, the lay person, when they go to the gym and they're doing bodybuilding or they're doing the treadmill, it would be honestly beneficial to breathe through the nose as much as possible. Yes, you should exhale. And for most people, it's challenging. It's very challenging. And it just shows you how, in a sense, how disconnected you are from your breathing, which is a huge part of our body and a way for us to control our physiology. And how strong your sympathetic nervous system is within the autonomic nervous system, right? So think about that next time you're exercising, how much awareness you have of it and how much control you can take of it. Any other questions before we wrap this up for today? I'll take one more question. All right, my friends, it was great being here as always. Don't forget to tune in at 12 o'clock this Thursday. We're going to be talking about applicable things that you can do right now to help regulate stress. We're going to be talking about more than that, but just come and join us. My wife will be here for sure. If you want to check out old episodes of Coffee Talk, go to the videos tab on the left-hand side of our page. When you get to the videos page, you will see a playlist for Coffee Talk, and you can see all the past episodes as well as on our YouTube page, East West Healing. We got one more question. I'll get to this and then I'll say goodbye. I know you guys aren't into using supplements for temporary therapeutic processes. Ashwagandha seems to work well for anxiety and stress. Would it be okay to use for a short? Yeah, I mean, that is an herb to me. It's an adaptogen, right? Ashwagandha is an adaptogen. It's almost like if I took your adrenals and I wrapped it in a soft blanket. That's all it is. Do I think it fixes anything? No, right? It's a chance for you to maybe de-stress the system a little so you can change how you're living and eating, right? To take some burden off the system, but taking it alone isn't going to fix the system. So you still have to apply everything. But ashwagandha is a great herb. It's one of those herbs, personally, that you won't feel anything unless you really need it. And that's the bottom line. So I really appreciate everyone tuning in, liking our posts. Please share what you want to hear about in the future. I'm out of here.